And hi, I'm Cindy, and welcome to Pearls of Liberty, December 11th, 2011. And we are out of town, but we had some things that we wanted to mention this week because there is so incredibly much going on.
It's all coming down now, folks.
Yeah, we're countdown to Armageddon. Just kidding, but 2011 is shaping up to be pretty significant.
2012?
2012 is shaping up to be pretty significant.
Uh-huh.
And one thing that Alex Jones was talking about this week, and of course other commentators, is the ramp up for the FEMA camps, that the contracts have been put out to staff the FEMA camps.
Yeah, Alex actually got the inside scoop. The documents were leaked to him from people working for KBR, Kellogg Brown and Root, which is a major subsidiary of Halliburton that is in charge of staffing the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Association, camps in the United States, which of course are only in case of an emergency, just in case some disaster happens, and then they can keep the people safe. So,
do you feel safer?
Oh, we feel so much safer now that we know it. If you don't know more, we can recommend to you just do a search for FEMA camps in the United States on YouTube, and Jesse Ventura's episode from his conspiracy theory show on FEMA camps is excellent. Alex Jones was one of the consultants on that, and there's lots of good information. Just suffice it to say that it's real, and it's happening in America. And to back that up, you can just find out the history of what Hitler did is actually from what was done in America, and of course we did it to the Japanese, and here we are shaping up to do that to Americans that are the domestic terrorists. All of the brown people scares are being turned against Americans, and it's all shaping up to happen next year. So the staffing of the FEMA camps doesn't mean that this is imminent, that they're going to start rounding up people, although that's possible. But it just means that they know that that they have the time frame and they need to start getting ready. So whatever disaster happens, so-called disaster, manipulated disaster, real or imagined, should be coming up within the next year. I would be very, 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 very surprised if all this doesn't start happening in 2012.
So have your backpack ready to bug out if needs be. That in tandem with, actually Obama signed the bill this week that makes it legal for the military to grab and indefinitely detain anybody, anywhere in the world. But there was some good news this week as well, and that is the fact that, according to very reliable sources, a National Guard unit decided that they were not prepared to move against American citizens.
Yeah, they were told that we're going to give you a test that's going to involve what's your reaction going to be in operations within America and against American people, and one person just said, I'm not answering this questionnaire, laid down his weapon and walked off, and there was a waterfall of people that fell in behind him, and you can find the story of that various places on the internet. It's real, it did happen, it's been confirmed through Stuart Rhodes, head of Oath Keepers, etc. So very encouraging, and we strongly believe that we have really good people in the military, notwithstanding the traitors at the top, and maybe not even all of the top people are traitors either. There's sources that say that there's quite a contingent within the Pentagon of military that are loyal to the Constitution. So encouraging, but the battle is shaping up to happen, and there will be underhanded tactics that will happen before too long, that we'll see more.
So it's a good time to pray. There are a lot of things in the balance, and if you are a person of faith, put your faith to work and ask God for mercy and help. And if you do happen to know any military people, if you feel comfortable, bring this up and Tell them to check out Oath Keepers. So our next topic that Don wants to mention some things about is the fact that Cameron is resisting the EU. So how do you think that's going to shake out?
Yeah, David Cameron, Prime Minister of Great Britain, is basically the British people don't want to be a part of the EU, and Cameron is having to side with them. But what we suspect is really going on in the background is that there are exceptions that need to be written in for the City of London, which is basically the global headquarters for the economic system of the New World Order. And the powers that be need to be made certain that the City of London is excluded from any of these EU agreements, and then once that's in place, then we suspect that Cameron will go along, because he is, by all accounts, a New World Order puppet, so we don't really expect anything different. Sarkozy and Merkel of France and Germany, respectively, are basically trying to foist this economic system on the rest of Europe, and one step at a time they're saying that we've got to do this for your own good. We're in a critical situation, and so we need to put in this system. So they always use this excuse, and get used to thinking this way, because that's how these people operate. They create the crisis and then offer the solution. So the solution is being offered. It's going to look for a bit of a time like it's been defeated in England, but eventually it will go down. And that's the thing about these people. They're not in any hurry, although they do have a timetable and they are behind. So they are speeding up their game, but if it doesn't look like it's going to play out to their advantage, they'll hold back. And that's what's happening with England right now.
Well, and there's always posturing too, isn't there? So they can
maintain their power.
So they can give the impression to the people that they're representing them and standing for their interests. Because
the one thing they really
the English don't want to. They don't want to be a part of.
Yeah, you have good friends in England, and
yeah.
we know their mind in terms of the EU and all of that. They don't want any part of it, and which a lot of European nations don't. They want their individual sovereignty, but the global bankers are in the business of selling out national sovereignty. That's what they do.
Well, my friends, when the EU was first being formed and there was talk about what would happen, they didn't want to be a part of the EU because they saw it as and this was before we were aware of all the banking cabal and all, but they believed that the EU was a way for Germany to, economically this time, instead of militarily, move to take over the world.
Yep.
So. There's also news from Russia this week, and you most likely have heard some of the controversy about the U.S. allegedly interfering in their elections, and that's not entirely resolved, is it?
Well, no, and it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on there. Drudge does have a headline about this major anti-Putin rallies happening in Moscow, but if you scratch the surface, dig a little deeper, what you find is that there are things on both sides of that equation, both pro-Putin and anti-Putin, that don't quite add up in and of themselves unless you look at both sides of the picture. So what there have been a great deal of vote fraud that's documented through sources that are leaked to some news articles that I read. So, okay, again, Putin is not actually up for election, but it's his party, United Russia Party, that is that people are supposedly protesting against. But what I've gleaned by reading different accounts and between the lines is that this is another one of the situations, I believe, where you've got the bankers playing both sides off against each other and against the people, where you've got them funding Putin and funding the fraud mechanism, but they're making the fraud blatant so that the people get upset about it, and that leads to destabilization and the rise of the second party, which is the Communist Party. So in order to make Russia a demon long term, they need to get this resurgence of communism. So it's in the bankers' best interest to do that. And again, this is how these people think. You would think, well, they're either on this side or on that side. One side's good, one side's bad. No, they don't. They don't think like that. They don't work like that. They are funding destabilization because their whole MO is bringing order out of chaos that they create. So they're creating chaos within the Russia United Party because, number one, Russia is a serious threat to the New World Order, the Anglo-American banking system. Putin is an enemy, but nevertheless, there is a great deal of corruption and fraud in Russia, so they're capitalizing that to use that to destabilize that. Russian people, like any people, they like and appreciate decency and honesty, and there's a lot in Putin's regime that isn't. So they're capitalizing on that and funding the opposition, which is the U.S. involvement. And Cindy said, well, there seems to be some, say, U.S. Involvement in that, interference, and it's really obvious. Hillary Clinton came out with a statement talking about this fraud, and interestingly enough, that statement happened before the counting had even begun. So this is like another one of those little smoking gun things where, yeah, she knows what's happening because we're involved, or she's stating something because she wants to make an issue of it. So, and
keep your eyes on Building 7 because it's going to go down now.
Well, I think you're about 30 minutes early. One of those.
So, talk about false flag. The anniversary of Pearl Harbor was this week, and it's a reasonable time to consider that also was false flag terror.
Yeah, and it's encouraging to me that more and more Americans seem to be aware of the fact that the administration, Roosevelt's administration, was aware of and encouraging of and wanted to get involved in World War II. Whether or not, like guys like Webster Tarpley that are very, very pro-FDR say that it was the generals that sort of made him do it. At any rate, the American people were basically lied to. Except they always, if you dig a little deeper, you can always find out that the American people were told. The Honolulu Advertiser, days before the actual Pearl Harbor attack, said they're going to be attacking. It was a news story in the paper. And then people forget about these things. Just like whenever something happens like Lee Harvey Oswald shoots JFK, there are news accounts that have the real details right there at the time of the event, but later it's covered up and it's buried and people don't hear about it. But there is some research coming out about Pearl Harbor that helps make Americans aware of this. And the key thing to get over is to realize, oh, that wasn't just back then. This tactic is still going on today, and that's what a lot of people can't get their mind around. But yeah, that's for real.
So, whatever the breaking point is, if you can talk to people as you're with your families over the holidays, I mean, no pressure, because we don't always bring these things up. But, maybe somebody who doesn't see 9/11 as being false flag terror, maybe they would be able to put the Pearl Harbor thing together because they're not as emotionally connected to that.
So you plant a seed in their subconscious. You get them thinking about it.
Or JFK.
Yeah.
One of the, there's so many deceptions that have been so huge and so impactful to the American people that it's easy to break the walls.
And once they know that you're knowledgeable about these things, your family, then if they've got questions, they'll come to you and you can tell them more. So don't hide your knowledge. It's time to bring it out and try to plant some seeds, and then people will become curious. Because things are deteriorating stability-wise in our country, and people are going to be wondering what's up, what's really going on. I've really seen that Democratic, we didn't have this on our list of things to say, but one thing I want to notice is that some major left or Democrat figureheads have come out against Obama. Michael Moore has said that he's Rothschild's man, or he's the banker's man, or something to that effect.
I didn't know that.
So, that's a pretty big deal that he's coming out that way, and Stewart and other people, Jon Stewart, are saying, yeah, this is a guy that's become very corrupt. And basically, I think that most Democrats have woken up to that fact. That there's just too much now that they can't deal with. So how that's all going to shake out, I'm not really sure. It's looking at this point like they're going to try to let them take a dive and then come back up with some kind of a military attack on Iran in the latter part of 2012, October surprise kind of thing. That's what it's looking like. So we'll see. And then we're hoping it's Ron Paul running against him, and we think that can be a winner. So you can always hope for the best. We think that's it.
With all this false flag stuff, we all have, to some extent, we all have hatred, which Jesus said amounts to murder in our hearts. But this war thing is just on so much larger a scale and so destructive. Most people do not want war, and these false flag terror attacks they're crafted to push us into a mania that we want war, we want revenge, and man, if something like that is what's planned in 2020.
Yeah, I really think that this is the major awakening that is that mankind is on the threshold of, realizing that major wars are manipulations of the people.
Yeah.
It's not just these things that happen, that people are maneuvered into fighting against each other, other countries, for the purposes of enslaving everyone. And that
Exactly.
has been what the century of the central bank, the 20th century, and this was the century of 2 world wars and a whole bunch of other wars, expressly for the purposes of debt enslavement.
Characterized, I would say, by war and fear and greed. I mean, the
whole Cold War and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fear. I mean, when we were kids, we were shown movies about how many people the nuclear bombs could kill. That's what's the point of that?
Yeah.
It's terrifying. I was terrified. I almost threw up in class. Literally. So, anyway, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, so no fear. We want everybody to be just fearless, because that is what Christ made us to be. We
Absolutely.
have no reason to fear, because our eternal state has already been guaranteed to us. If you're walking in the Holy Spirit, you know that. You know His presence. You know that you'll be with Him forever. And it's so easy to get drawn into the fear that the media is constantly doing that. And we're trying to keep updated on the news, so there's always things to be fearful about. But always remember that a Redeemer lives, and there is no better place to be than in the center of His will. And we're fighting the battle that He wants us to fight, which is to be for truth, for justice, for liberty, for individual freedom.
Absolutely. And Lindsay Williams was on the Alex Jones program twice this week.
Pastor Lindsay Williams.
Talking about
chaplain. No.
talking about what the elite have told him is going to happen in 2012. And that was nice of Don to say that you shouldn't be fearful in preparation for hearing some of that. Just kidding.
No, we thought it was actually very encouraging.
Yeah, some of it is.
The little tidbit that was on the following day's statement was real significant. The thing that he didn't get to the first day that he was on Alex's show. And he hinted at it but didn't quite get to it. And the way he was, this is Pastor Lindsay Williams, the guy that has been a chaplain to the oil rigs on the North Shore of Alaska, and got to know some of the global oil executives and their banking leaders on a personal basis. So he's has relationships with some of these elites, or I would say barely under the elites. They're not upper level elites, but they're really, really high up. They know the major strategies. So Lindsay was saying that he was expecting, after 1,000 years is like a day, 2,000 years, Christ, something happening at 2,000 and being disappointed. Then he realized, actually through these elites that he says know the Bible better than some Christians, that Jesus' ministry didn't start when he was born. It started when he came of age at his bar mitzvah, the time of, or you could say the time that he was in the temple and was about his father's business. and that was when he was about 12, turning 13. So there's a case, even though the calendar might not be perfect, for the, he would say, and I like the way he put it, divine, it wasn't divine interventions. You know, it was divine
expressions,
something like that. Yeah, it was.
As Kim Clement says, how about this? Unusual miracles. That would be
yeah,
fun.
it wasn't even. Yeah, I mean, it
I'm
was.
just
It was
kidding.
not necessarily like you're going to be saved, or you're going to be raptured. But the point is that God's going to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the idea is that there will be divinely orchestrated events that are associated with the sort of the 2000 year anniversary of Christ's bar mitzvah. I thought that was kind of encouraging.
It actually was encouraging, because some of what he said the day before was things like, and you should probably listen for yourselves, but he was telling people that it'll be dangerous to have paper money at the end of 2012. Probably the value will be taken out of paper money. That's what Lindsay Williams said. That's not what we're saying. But and some other things like that. Mostly the economy collapsing, but also some police state stuff. But then, really, he talked about this, referred to it as the devil's messiah. And when I first heard that, I thought that the elite were planning to set up the Antichrist. But that's actually not it. They are very concerned that the Spirit of God will be pouring out on His people, and that there will be very positive things happening related to the kingdom of God. And they're trying to circumvent that by having people become fearful and filled with dread. And so that if we have faith, then God will. If you're a Christian, you understand the concept that faith is what draws God into us, and into our prayers interact with Him through faith, and faith is the thing that He responds to and does what we ask.
So these twisted guys actually think like they're doing a God a favor because they're giving us something to work for. We've got to have fear to overcome so that we can exercise our faith. So they feel like that's the wonderful thing that they're doing for God. And these are really twisted people.
Yeah, but Don is right in encouraging to not be fearful, and he's speaking to me as much as to anybody, because I have had some issues with some of this stuff, but I do believe that God is faithful and He has a plan. And I love Psalm 2. It's one of my favorite scripture passages. And it begins with how there's an uprising against God, and it concludes with, "He who sits in the heavens laughs, the Lord holds them in derision," because it's pointless to resist God. He's God.
Yep.
So we have seen some movies. We didn't really do Pirl Culture last week because we were in a bigger hurry then than we are now. So we wanted to mention a few movies. One that was so much fun. Maybe we'll go home and watch it again. Not really. The Visioneers.
I'm wondering, are we sure we didn't talk about Visioneers already? Maybe we were talking to a friend. Anyway, Visioneers, it's really fun.
Very fun.
Yeah.
And it has a good point, too.
Zach Galifianakis.
Maybe we did mention it.
Yeah, it's sounding familiar, but then again, I know we talked to somebody about it too, so that might be it. But anyway, Visioneers is a corporate America gone bad, as if it could get any badder, and
yeah,
and stereotypically, the people are trapped in this useless work system that doesn't do any work, and they try to get out, but they're not having too much success. And
if they're not happy, they explode.
Yeah, that's right. They're battling these explosions.
And in order to be happy, you're supposed to eat more butter.
Yeah,
I kind of like that one.
I think we did talk about this. Not the butter thing, but
we'll move on
the explosion thing. Yeah.
We saw a film called Eye of the Beholder, and it's not an extremely recent film. It's Ashley Judd and Ewan McGregor, but it was was entertaining. It was a good suspense film. I don't know that it had a real significant meaning. She was a serial killer, and he became obsessed with her.
Yeah,
A
I
little bit like
I wasn't
Backtrack.
giving it my full attention because I was doing other things. So
Entertaining. I think I gave it 4 stars, but it's not a real deep movie. I mean, it doesn't have any deep meaning other than the impact of a bad childhood, which we all are aware of, right? So we also saw a film called The Deal that's only a few years old. This was about an oil company that was an oil deal, actually.
I think it was it was 2005 or so. So
it was
before
2005.
the first bailout, before the corruption really was as visible as it is now. And I remember, after I watched it, I read a review of it and by Roger Ebert, and he said that in the past it would have been difficult to believe this level of corruption, but it's not too hard to believe it now. And of course, even now, it's much more believable and almost like it's telling you the way the world really is. It's about an oil deal between a guy that doesn't really have, in a U.S. corporation, that doesn't really have the skills to evaluate it, and how he's being taken for a ride, but how that's working the way that the system wants it to work with this Russian oil company that's laundering oil money from other places, etc. So I liked it in terms of the realistic level of complexity and a number of characters. And I didn't think it was overly confusing. I thought it was probably realistic that way.
Yeah, I thought it was very good. Good film. Good entertainment.
Yep.
And we watched a film called Camille. That's not really significant, just entertaining, a romantic comedy, but it's pretty odd. It's pretty unusual. Didn't somebody say it was? Didn't some reviewer say it was the most unusual romantic comedy?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the strangest.
The strangest. Ah.
Yeah, I think it definitely was. Yeah, you had the person that really did not want to get married, that was out on parole, and this is what he had to do, is to marry this girl, and he was going to be sort of not hounded by the law. So he marries her, and then she's really annoying because she talks all the time. And then they meet David Carradine, who's this guy that paints horses, and then and then they will actually be then. I think immediately after that, then they get in a motorcycle accident, and she's dead. But is she? And then you find out that.
Come on, don't give it away.
No, I won't give it away. Okay, but no, that's kind of
it's
that's
a
kind of the
little bit
setup.
like Death Becomes Her.
You have to see how it works out. It is creative and it's interesting.
It is. It's sweet. It's not creepy. So, is there anything else that we wanted to touch on? Oh,
what?
Maybe we've mentioned it before, but just a little encouragement. I think we have mentioned it. If you're a Christian, don't hate and fear people who aren't. If you're not a Christian, don't hate and fear Christians. I think that I just have the feeling that one of the big undercurrents right now in culture, and especially liberty culture, is a division between. I know we've talked about it. Is between Christians and non-Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we need each other. We gotta love one another. You know, if you're a Christian, God is love. You shouldn't be out taking pot shots at these people.
If you understand that, the key thing is to understand liberty, and Ron Paul explains it so well, and other people too, our founders understood this extremely well. It's true that George Washington said that this country is in no way founded on the Christian religion. And that quote will upset a lot of Christians who are certain that this country was founded on the Christian religion. I think the key thing there is you could change one word of that Washington quote and it would really help people out, but it's not what he said. So if people understand that this country was founded on Christian principles, I think Washington would agree with you. If you say it's founded on the Christian religion, well, he said that it's not. And I think that's true, because religion is about a system of what's right, what's not, and I think that's the sense in which he was using the word. And I think that's also the sense in which people say that Christ didn't come to establish a religion. So mankind tends to put things in boxes, and principles of liberty are not a way to box people in, they're a way to set people free. And if you have Christians that understand that that's what we're supposed to be about, we're not supposed to be codifying a new set of laws and rules and ways of thinking and statements of faith, etc., but we're supposed to be about setting people free. This is, Christ inaugurated his ministry by teaching Isaiah 43, I think
61.
It is 61.
The Spirit of the Lord God is now on me.
So that's about setting free the captives. And there are liberty people who are not necessarily Christians that know a whole lot more about setting captives free than Christians do. And we really need to learn from them. And I'm talking about in very literal ways, and in ways that we think that the system, people might tend to think that the system should be justified when in fact it shouldn't. So there's a lot to be learned on both sides of that one.
And we definitely need the grace and power of God to deliver us from some of this evil.
Okay.
Okay.
Did we get all the movies?
We got all the movies.
Okay. Blessings. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Go in peace. Enjoy the appreciation and celebration of the coming of our Savior and the incarnation of what mankind is to become.
Yes.
Even though he wasn't born this time of year, celebrate it anyway.